This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement, and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method, and to get your free report, go to 29security.com. That's the number 29security.com. 29security.com. Go to 29security.com.
Is debt.
Welcome to Opinion Nation.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal that all of us are created equal.
I, too, am America.
Now here's your host, Bryce Robbins.
Hello, everybody. I'm coming to you live this Saturday morning from sunny New Jersey. Trying to think of where I'm from. I kind of forgot for a second. I'm your host, Bryce Robbins, and today I have a pretty good show for you, be it that my guests pull through and call in. But today we're going to be talking about an interesting topic. So, yes, as much as it's killing me to get to the VP pick of Hillary Clinton, that one will have to wait, because this one, I feel, is a topic that needs to be talked about. So the topic I'm talking about, and for those of you who are conservative coming over from Finding Common Ground listening, it's about Black Lives Matter. Now, the movement, Black Lives Matter, started in 2013, just to give you guys a little reference. That's when the Twitter hashtag started. which is essentially how the movement started. It was all on Twitter. And it happened in response to the Trayvon Martin shooting. Now, Black Lives Matter has been in the news a lot, most notably for hearing comments like this.
Part of show prep today, I found a story from March, I think, of 2015, in which President Obama welcomed two founders of Black Lives Matter to the White House and commemorated them and their efforts and praised them as being better organizers than he is. And that's it, that Black Lives Matter was just exactly who they are then as who they are today. They're a terrorist group. They're quickly becoming a terrorist group committing hate crimes.
Okay, so there you have it. Rush Limbaugh is talking about how they're a terrorist group committing hate crimes. But other people might not feel the same way. So we have a lot of people who are calling in today who are going to be talking about the matter and how they feel about it.
You have one
Our
right
first
now,
guest should
actually.
be calling in any minute now.
They're on with you now, actually.
Oh, all right. All right, we're going to go live to our guest. Hello, Sarah. How you doing?
Hey, Bryce. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Many of you might remember Sarah from before. So she's my liberal friend. In Black Lives Matter. Yeah, why not? My overly left liberal friend. If you could describe Black Lives Matter and how the movement is going, how could you sum it up for me and the listeners?
That's a vague question. Can you rephrase the question? It's a very broad movement.
Sum up, in it, so to speak, how do you feel the direction of Black Lives Matter is going as a group in general?
In general, I think it's a movement that is decades, even centuries in the making. And it's a movement in response to decades and even centuries of Black oppression, Black murder, Black enslavement, and white people generally exerting their power over people of color. And I think at the moment there's a lot of discrepancy, and especially with the recent shootings of those police officers in Dallas, people are starting to see Black Lives Matter as a movement of hatred or as a movement of violence, and it really, really isn't. It's a movement that is dedicated to getting Black people the same rights and the same equality that white people have. And even though that there's equality in the laws, that's not always put into practice in real life.
Right. So what I heard this week that kind of, I've always been on the fence about it, about the term Black Lives Matter and what it means. But I heard someone say, when you say save the rainforest, you're not saying screw the other forests. It just means that the rainforest needs help. So I guess, when people say Black Lives Matter is reverse racism, what's your response to that?
Well, first off, I'd say that reverse racism doesn't exist, because racism isn't just, disliking someone of another race. It's systematic. It's hatred plus power. And because, at least in America, Black people don't have this widespread power in media, in the government, in corporations to oppress white people, reverse racism can't really exist. And I'd also say that Black Lives Matter isn't saying that white lives don't matter. It's not, Black Lives Matter isn't saying let's go kill white people. It's just saying let's stop killing Black people. And when Black people are killed, we need to persecute the people, not persecute, but prosecute the people who are responsible for this. For example, a lot of people will cite the fact that, after the Dallas shootings of the police officers, there wasn't really any protests. And that's because after the Dallas shootings and after any time a cop is shot and killed, the killer of these cops is rightfully prosecuted, arrested, convicted. But any time that there's the killing of a Black person or a non-cop or a civilian, this punishment often doesn't take place. And that's why there's protests. Protests don't just happen because bad things happen. Protests happen because bad things happen and the people in charge don't do anything.
Okay, but here's the thing. With any type of shooting, and I'll focus on Dallas right now, those cops were shot in cold blood, and, that man, I call him a terrorist. And I think that we should have taken every measure to do so, and vigils should have been done as they were. So I'm a little confused with your response here about what you mean about the Dallas cop. And then I want to get to some statistics about African Americans and their run-ins with police. But could you just kind of clarify what you meant there?
I'm not condoning the actions of the people who shot those Black cops the Black Lives Matter people who shot those cops. But Black Lives Matter isn't condoning. I'm sorry, I used the wrong word. I'm not condoning the actions of the people who murder cops. Black Lives Matter is not condoning the actions of people who murder cops. And when people murder cops, the government rightfully steps in and arrests them. And that's why there aren't exactly protests after that happened. Because when that man wrongfully shot those cops, they sent in a bomb drone robot, something like that, and they took him out. And rightfully so. They did what they needed to do, and they punished him for his actions. But when police kill black people, they often don't face punishment for their actions. So I don't think it was right that that man shot that cop and those cops, but I think the government reacted in a pretty fair way.
So I do want to throw out some statistics here that if you are a black man, and this is just according to the FBI's, statistics here. That's the source. It's stating that if you are African American, they make up 6% of the population, yet 26% of police shootings. So clearly, and when you do it per population, it's 40% in total. So when you are counting population size, the fact that they're so small but make up such a big number, that's pretty disproportionate. I'm not good at math, but I could tell you that something's not right there. And another statistic that actually interested me is that black people and white people commit the same amount of crime. There's no discrepancy there, that we are committing the same amounts of crime. It's just one is getting policed more because some people, most notably African Americans, are growing up or are in high-risk, high-crime areas, or as we would call high-crime areas. But the truth is that just as many drugs are being done in the white neighborhoods, and people just don't see it. Now, I actually saw an interesting statistic about black-on-black crime, and I want to get your opinion on that first. So talk to me about your opinions on black-on-black crime.
I think that in the context of police brutality, black-on-black crime is kind of irrelevant because the black civilians murdering other black civilians is fundamentally different than a cop killing civilians. They are two different problems. Okay,
so interestingly enough, I was kind of shocked because I always kind of bought the black-on-black crime issue. It made sense, and I'm going to talk about this with my next guest, but the issue is that when you look at white-on-white crime, it's almost just as much. The whole point is that our neighborhoods are still segregated. And in essence, we are seeing the fact that these statistics are skewed. Black-on-black crime statistic, and it's really not a valid argument. I was pretty shocked when I saw that.
Yeah, it's not a valid argument. Even if there was higher rates of black-on-black crime, that still wouldn't justify a cop shooting a civilian when he didn't have to and using unnecessary force.
So here's the thing, though. You and I have both never lived in the eyes of a cop. And when I watch those videos of the two men who recently got shot, Mr. Castillo and Mr. Sterling, I have yet to pass judgment on them. I have yet to state what was right and what was wrong, because at the end of the day, we are not the cops. We were not in the situation. And I feel as though those cops were not racist people. They did not wake up and say, okay, I'm going to go shoot some black people today. So do you think there's any merit to the argument that these cops feared for their lives?
Well, first of all, I think most cops don't, even the ones that do end up killing black people, don't wake up and say, today can be the day I commit murder. I think a lot of it, racism isn't just hatred with the intention to be hatred. Sometimes it's prejudices and stereotypes that lead to harmful actions, such as murdering a black man when you really didn't have to. Now, in these cases, both of these one of these black men was unarmed. The other one, I believe, was armed but had a permit to carry and therefore had every right to. And when you look at these videos, and you, as far as the Sterling case, I believe that's the one with the man selling the CDs. And the Castillo, that was the man who was
In the car.
The woman, in the car. I understand that being a cop is a very dangerous job, and it can get risky, and it can get scary. But at the end of the day, those cops are trained for that, and they're supposed to be trained for that. And even if there is a criminal, even if someone did do something wrong, even if somebody is fighting back against being arrested or not exactly conducting themselves in the most orderly way, those cops live, and those cops have a job to protect and serve those people, even protecting and serving criminals, because criminals still have rights. Now, in these cases, these men weren't criminals. They weren't doing anything wrong, and they were wrongfully afraid. Now, if I was driving home from work and doing nothing wrong, and a cop, especially in the context of all that's going on in our country, came up to me and whipped out his gun, then I might get riled up too. And if I was Alton Sterling, and I just want to finish this one point real quick. And if I was Alton Sterling, and I was standing out there selling CDs, and 3 cops came up to me and started roughing me up, I would be scared too. And I think it's a harmful and illogical double standard that with a gun in their face, we expect civilians to stay calm and remain steady, but the cops whose job it is to do this, who has training to do this, we give them a free pass when they don't stay calm, even though it's their job.
All right, so here's the thing, though. With cops, right, and with the whole issue on what we were just talking about, my issue is that if a cop is mistreating you, that's why we have the legal system. Don't go to whip out your gun. And for Mr. Castillo, look, again, we only see the video, and I'm not trying to take sides here. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. He was reaching for his ID. What he should have been doing was stating, I have a firearm on me, put his hands in the air, gotten out of the car, told the cop with verbal command where the gun was. And see, I'm not going to take sides on these issues yet. But
well, here's the thing about.
Yeah,
here's
please.
The thing when you say, well, here's the thing when you say, you can just go through the legal system. People have been trying to do that for years. And you look in the media, and what have people been
trying to do for years? I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you meant.
People have been trying to get justice through the legal system in this type of case for years. And if you look on TV, all you hear time and time and time again is unarmed black man shot, unarmed black man shot, unarmed black man shot, and no indictment, no conviction, no punishment. So clearly, working through the legal system is something that does not work. And there are tons and tons and tons of instances.
So what do you do if the legal system doesn't work?
Well, right now, that's why Black Lives Matter is here. We're protesting, and we're going to keep trying. But sometimes it's not necessarily a case-by-case basis. Sometimes it's not the broader movement. But if you look, there was also another recent case where a black behavioral therapist there's a video of this, lying on the ground, hands up, saying, please don't shoot me, and he got shot. So the legal system, it doesn't matter what he did. He could have still died, and he did nothing wrong, and he put his hands up, and he was on the ground, and he still got punished. So I think working through the legal system, if you're about to get shot, if you're about to die, then the legal system can't help you.
Okay,
it can't bring you back to life. It can't bring you back to life, even if the cop was indicted or convicted, even if they did face punishment. If you're going to die, then you're going to die, and no ruling from a judge or jury can fix that.
Okay, so fair enough. Now, my next question would then be, is what would you say fixes these issues? I mean, these protests, these incidents, we have TV telling us, or on Fox News telling us one thing, and then we have, MSNBC telling us one thing with Al Sharpton. What do you say is the remedy here? What are steps that average people can take to solving this problem?
I think it's different depending on who you are. As for me, I'm a white person, and I'm here to be an ally. I'm really not in a position to lead this movement, nor am I in a position to really critique this movement. I'm here to be an ally and do what the black community says needs to be done to implement change. As a white person, it's my job.
That's just going in blindly? Just, you might be listening to a movement that might be guided more so by perhaps vengeance than actual accuracy on what they need to be successful?
I think any movement, okay, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, because I've always felt for the longest time that Black Lives Matter doesn't have the platform it needs to be sustainable and to be a legitimized, group. It doesn't seem to have a path forward.
I think it absolutely has a path forward, and I think that it's not me going in blindly, because I'm not just kind of showing up to a protest and doing whatever people tell me to do. I mean, I'm reading up on the matter, and I'm taking part in the conversation. But for me, as a white person, taking part in the conversation means listening and helping to amplify the voices of people being directly affected by this, not speaking over them.
All right, so just to continue on this a little bit, in essence, in looking at Black Lives Matter as a whole, do you think that the group is, as I stated, sustainable? Because as I see it, without this platform, and Hillary Clinton said the same thing. She said, you need to lay out a platform. Do you think that this group is sustainable?
I think the platform, like an official platform, and to be a little bit more organized, would absolutely help Black Lives Matter. It would absolutely help any movement. However, I think it has to be sustainable. We really don't have a choice, because for as long as black people continue to be murdered at the hands of police, and for as long as police are not being held accountable, this movement will continue to thrive, and it has to thrive because people are dying. And it doesn't really matter, even if they don't come together, even if they don't have a platform. For as long as black people continue to be oppressed, there will be people who rightfully will fight that oppression.
All right, and lastly, what do you feel about the issue of all lives matter, the terminology?
I do not like all lives matter. I do not think that it is actually about all lives matter. In essence, the phrase all lives matter isn't bad. The origin of the movement, however, is. Because this phrase is something specifically designed to combat Black Lives Matter. And Black Lives Matter was specifically designed to counter police brutality and violence. Therefore, I think that all lives matter silences black people, and it tries to invalidate racism and the struggles black people face. Because all lives matter isn't actually about equality. If it was, then why do they only ever exist to counter Black Lives Matter events? Where were they during the Syrian refugee crisis? Where were they to help kids stuck in sweatshops and factories in third world countries? Where were they protesting after the Orlando shootings and the Newtown shootings? And why does All Lives Matter only seem to have a problem with Black Lives Matter, but not with Blue Lives Matter? Because if they were really about all lives mattering, then they would correct any other movement that countered that, not just Black Lives Matter. So all lives matter, again, the phrase itself isn't problematic, but the movement in the context of everything else was designed by white people to silence black people who have been oppressed for far too long.
Yeah, I think Jon Stewart put it best, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, when he said the idea is that when people are trying to attain the notion that all men are created equal, we should help them. When there are people who are trying to keep them out, those are the assholes. And to be quite frank here, I think I've pretty much seen the evidence I need to see. I think the jury's out on this one. But the movement Black Lives Matter, while rough around the edges, and I think has a long way to go before it becomes, a viable group that isn't questioned about whether it is doing the right things, or as the clip I played before is a quote-unquote terrorist group, I think it has a long way to go. But I think the meaning behind the term Black Lives Matter, and that's really what I wanted the show to be about, is legitimate. And I don't understand. Yeah, please.
I understand that any movement is going to have its fringes, but I don't think it's in any way a terrorist group. I mean, once again, the man who committed those violent crimes was condemned by Black Lives Matter. And for as long, racism is a centuries-old problem, and I don't think just one person can solve it. I don't think it's going to be completely eradicated in the next few years. But for as long as black people are fighting their oppression, there are going to be white people who are fighting back against that fight. There are always going to be people who are racist. There are always going to be people who, no matter how viable or valid or well-structured the movement is, there are always going to be people who are going to look for ways to invalidate it, because that's how they uphold the system of white privilege that benefits them every day.
All right. Well, that actually just caught my attention. So before I let you go and before I go to break, I'm a little curious. The argument of white privilege. Break it down for the listeners, because I might agree with you here, but I want to hear it.
Well, white privilege is one of many types of privileges. Privilege is basically this notion that because you were born into a certain minority group, whether it be white privilege or straight privilege or male privilege, then you kind of have a one-up over minorities such as black people or women or gay people or trans people. In this case, it's important as a white person for me to recognize my white privilege. And white privilege can manifest itself in 1,000,001 different ways, whether it be big or small. Sometimes it's walking into a job interview and maybe the person giving the interview, whether he consciously recognizes it or not, likes you a little bit better because you have a white-sounding name while the person next to you has a black-sounding name. Sometimes it's walking down the street and you get stopped and frisked and you catch the cop's eyes because you're black, whereas the white person next to you doesn't get stopped and frisked. I think a really good example of this was a video where in the same town, this YouTuber did a social experiment. He had a black man carrying around an AR-15 rifle. I believe it was the same one used in the Orlando shootings. And it was an open carry state, and the black man was legally walking down the street, walking with the gun out, and the police drove in front of him, and they pulled out a gun and told him to get down with his hands up. Whereas the next day, they did it with a white man, same gun, around the same street, same town, and they just calmly went up to him and asked, why do you have this gun with you? So I think white privilege, in essence, is all of these societal benefits that you get because you're white. It's all of these things that you don't have to think about. You never have to walk down the street and think, oh, God forbid this cop is racist and he's going to kill me. Oh, God, you never have to go into a job interview and think, oh, God forbid this guy is racist, I won't get this job. White privilege is not having to think about and struggle with the things that black people do because you are white.
All right, thank you for coming on the show today, Sarah, and I'm going to end our segment with a little clip here. This is from Educator, and I'm sure you've seen her on Facebook or on YouTube or somewhere. She's always talking about her anti-racism activism. Her name is Jan Elliott. Look her up. Amazing speaker. But here's an experiment she did in front of her classroom. It's a short clip, but I want everyone to listen to this. But once again, thank you, Sarah, and definitely you always come back on the show. You're always welcome. All right, here's the clip.
Thank you, Bryce.
I want every white person in this room would be happy to be treated as this society in general treats our citizens, our black citizens. If you, as a white person, would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand.
Surprise, surprise, no one stood.
Didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
Now, that is a pretty deep question there. And the whole topic of today, and by the way, a little disclosure, I don't know how many guests are coming on today because I've already seen that one had an incident. So thoughts and prayers with you. Jamaica, wish your brother, I hope he gets well soon. He had a little incident, but nothing too bad to worry about. And with our other guests, I have no idea where they are. But that's no problem. The show must go on, and we still have time for one guest I'm thinking of having on after the break. But don't worry about it. That'll be a surprise for you. So before we go to break and before we end this topic, really, in this current segment, I want to state and give some statistics out. So if you think about the crime level, and if you think about who commits more crime, the media, I guess the corporate media would have you believe that we're all committing different amounts of crimes, and it would descend in order from blacks, Hispanics, then to whites, and then probably Asians or something. And the people who commit by far the most acts of crime are definitely blacks, right? Well, the fact of the matter is it really depends on the type of crime, but mostly that is untrue. Now, I gave the statistic before that when we are looking at proportionate to population size, we can see that black people are dealt with very different types of force, to put it bluntly. Okay, so when we're talking about violent force by police, black people are shot or make up 40% of police shootings just last year alone, but make up 13% of the population. So something is wrong there. And when we look at the murder rate, yes, black on black crime is a problem, but so is white on white crime, only proving that we have not segregated or desegregated our neighborhoods. If you live in, a white town, you're more likely to get killed by a white person, and that just makes sense. But I want to get to the point of Black Lives Matter. So when hearing the term Black Lives Matter, it is easy to dismiss it and say, the term is racist and it kicks out other people. It's saying that only Black Lives Matter. I don't understand why they can't use White Lives Matter. But that is not the point here. The point here is that they're not stating that. And if you believe that, you've missed the point. The point is very clear and very simple. The point is that black lives are under attack here. That they just want a fair and equal shot that everybody else has. So I'm going to bring it back to what I said before. I'm going to give a couple examples. When I say save the rainforest, I'm not saying screw the prairie. I'm not saying damn all the other forests. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just calling attention to the fact that the rainforest needs help. When I break my arm, I don't say, oh, time to go get a cast for my body because all bones matter. I'm saying, no, my arm bone matters because it is broken. And we can go on with these quirky quotes. But before I go to break, I want to give a video. This is President Obama speaking, and he's talking about Black and Blue Lives Matter. So let's hear what he has to say.
There's no contradiction between us supporting law enforcement, making sure they've got the equipment they need, making sure that their collective bargaining rights are recognized, making sure that they're adequately staffed, making sure that they are respected, making sure their families are supported, and also saying that there are problems across our criminal justice system. There are biases, some conscious and unconscious, that have to be rooted out. That's not an attack on law enforcement. That is reflective of the values that the vast majority of law enforcement bring to the job. But I repeat, if communities are mistrustful of the police, that makes those law enforcement officers who are doing a great job and are doing the right thing, it makes their lives harder.
So I think in essence, Obama is stating how wrong it is of Black Lives Matter to taking the approach of killing innocent cops. And cops, there are more cops doing their job right than wrong. But at the end of the day, we need to realize that there is a problem. All right, I'm going to go to break. And when I come back, we're going to have a couple more guests. All right. I'm Bryce Robbins. This is Opinion Nation. And I'll see you right when I get back.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement, and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method and to get your free report, go to 29security.com. That's the number 29security.com. 29security.com. Go to 29security.com.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls, start saving thousands in interest and fees, and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
All right, welcome back. I'm coming to you live. This is Bryce Robbins on a beautiful Saturday morning. I feel like whenever I do Opinionation, it's always nice out. Whenever I miss it, it's not so nice out. But I always have good weather here in sunny New Jersey, the Garden State. All right, so we've been talking about Black Lives Matter, and it's definitely an issue worth talking about. Now, the movement obviously comes under criticism when they are taking over stages of Bernie Sanders and shouting, say her name or say their name. But at the end of the day, we must recognize that there is an issue. There is a problem. People are dying, and they just came out with a statistic that you're more likely to die from being white than black. But, you know, the point here was that they didn't even adjust for population. Of course you're more likely if your population's bigger. Now, Black Lives Matter has deep roots, obviously, because of the genuine mistreatment and racism that has been deeply rooted within our society. But that doesn't mean I or anybody is directly responsible. Some people are, some people aren't. But the one thing I don't understand is I always hear the argument for reparations. I actually heard that argument the other day, and I was surprised to hear that one. But at the end of the day, I don't agree with that argument, because most people don't even know their relatives who had to go through the bondage or pain. So that argument, I think, goes a little too off the deep end. I'm trying to kind of get into the whole every side here. But when we look at I guess might be coming on. Well, when we look at this movement as a whole, and when we talk about the meaning of Black Lives Matter, to me, what it states is that there is an injustice and there is a problem. And I feel that there is something wrong and that we are not doing everything we can to root out that justice. At the same time, however, the death of innocent cops who are doing their job is not a viable solution to the problem. So I will repeat essentially my same statement here, is that when we are, fighting our race war, and there is a problem in our streets, there is a different treatment between black people and white people, and that can no longer go unnoticed. But the solution is not disrespect to our officers. The solution is not opposition to our officers. If anything, we must stand with them. I recently saw something coming out of Camden, I think it was Camden, Patterson, New Jersey, where a black officer is starting a sign-up around the town. And he's essentially giving people an opportunity to be cops, intern cops. Not real cops, but intern cops. They're not getting a gun or anything. But he's giving people in the community a chance to do community policing so that they understand what it's like to be on both ends of the stick, just like him. And community policing, I think, is the best way to go in this respect. Because it makes people active in their community. I was listening to this whole story about how, way back when, people used to know their local cop. Today, cops live in different towns than where they police. Should we really have an all-white police force in an all-black neighborhood? I don't know. But now, I kind of want to have my good friend Rick come on the show, Rowdy Ricky Robinson. So first, I want to apologize to everybody because we had some incidents with some guests, and it just seemed like the stars in the line for my guests today, but that's fine. Because today we're going to also, we just heard it from the left, now we're going to kick it over to the right. And we're going to hear Rowdy Ricky Robinson come on and share his opinions on the movement of Black Lives Matter and how he feels. And I hope it's not as drastic as Rush Limbaugh, but don't be surprised if it is. All right. Rowdy Rick, what's up?
Okay, so I have a couple of questions about some of the stuff that you've brought up in regards to the reparations, and I know that you don't necessarily align yourself with that ideal, but do the black slave owners that existed actually have to pay reparations too? I'm just curious.
Oh, I see. That's a great question, and that's a great point. And again, I don't know. Again, I don't agree with that. I'm just kind of something I've heard about. It was a growing ideology. I know Bernie Sanders turned the idea down. I know Hillary Clinton turned the idea down. So I don't think it's mainstream yet, but I know that the idea is there. And that's why I just wanted to address it. But I don't.
So what about all the Irish slaves? Do we need to pay reparations for them too? They look kind of white, but there apparently were lots of Irish slaves. I'm just curious.
They're all great points, and I agree with you. I think the reparations is a foolish move for the Black Lives Matter to be targeting. If they ever really make their platform clear, it should not include that. But on the idea of...
So hang on, one other topic, and then I'll let you have the mic back for a second, because I got some background noise going on right now anyway. On to the white community policing black cops. What about all the Black Lives Matter folks that are saying there shouldn't be any black cops in uniform, because as far as they're concerned, their Uncle Toms are sellouts and they deserve to die, which has been all over Twitter lately.
See, the thing is that those people, I don't think, represent the actual movement of Black Lives Matter. You're always going to have radicals in your movement. And that was true with Martin Luther King. That's true today, and that's true with any movement you look at. But that doesn't mean that... I mean, that's just silly to state that we shouldn't have black cops. That's a silly move, and I think that those are a few vocal people on Twitter. But
again, their exact phrasing is there shouldn't be any black men serving in any type of white man's uniform because that makes them sellouts. And before you say those are fringe guys, radicals, etc., look at what Trump has done to the Republican Party and then tell me the fringe and radicals don't matter.
Yeah, again here, with anybody saying that they are not a part of the same movement I'm looking at. I'm looking at a movement that is trying to fight the injustice rooted in our system. And it is clear that there is an injustice in our system when we have a group that commits the same amount of crime overall, is incarcerated nearly 2/3 more often than white people. And the recidivism rate on African Americans is even higher because they're getting arrested more often, because they're being patrolled more often. And the fact of the matter is that I'm not saying that that means anything, that they shouldn't be arrested. I'm sure some of these people are committing crimes. But the problem is that white people aren't getting persecuted for the same crimes that black people are. And when they're dealt with those crimes by police, it's different. It inherently is, like I said, that 40% of the police shootings were black men when they only make up 13% of the population. So I want to get to the idea of the term Black Lives Matter with you. When we hear the term Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, where are you standing on that? And I don't mean to be divisive. Pick a side. I'm just curious, on a spectrum, where are you at?
On a spectrum, as far as Black Lives Matter to All Lives Matter, as far as I'm concerned, all lives do matter. All lives matter from birth to death, regardless of race, religious preference, etc. And that is where I stand on all of that. Now, the interesting thing, because you keep bringing up a lot of things that make the Black Lives Matter movement sound like they are fighting a system that is intrinsically racist. I have a problem with that, and the reason I have a problem with that is because a lot of the folks that are espousing the Black Lives Matter movement are the Democrats, and as of a lot of information that's being released on their internal memos and emails today, surprise, surprise, they are the ones that typically sound almost as racist as they portray the Republicans to be. So my problem with that is this just another propaganda arm, considering the fact that an email that was just released was concerning the vetting of one D-Ray, who is basically the spokesman of that particular group.
Well, hang on. So when we're talking about Black Lives Matter here and how Democrats use it, I mean, let's be clear here. The reason that African Americans go to the Democratic Party is because Lyndon B. Johnson, and he knew what he was doing. I'm not going to say his quote, but we knew what he was doing, and anyone can look up his intentions. But I do want to stress the point that whoever is taking, political advantage of this is irrelevant to the fact that there is injustice in our system. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I don't agree that there is nearly as much injustice as being portrayed in the media. No, I do not.
But even looking at the statistics of that there are more shootings, you're more likely to get shot, you're more likely to get arrested for the same crime, you're just going to be treated differently. I mean, you hear all the stories of people who walk into stores, people look at them differently. I mean, let me ask you actually the question that lady asked, Jane Elliott. Would you want to be treated the way black people are treated?
The only answer that I have to that question is one of the things that I keep hearing about over and over again about all these black people that have this talk with their children about this is the way that you need to behave in front of the police. Make sure you say yes sir, no sir if you're involved in a traffic stop. Keep your hands on the wheel till you're told to do otherwise. Those are the same talks that we white folks have about how our children need to be dealing with police officers. The difference with that is, no, I don't want to necessarily be treated the same way that some black people are treated by police officers. I'm not saying that there are not bad apples in any group. Everybody in the world sometimes has a job that they hate, and sometimes they take it out on the wrong people. It happens whether you're working in a grocery store. It happens whether or not you're working as a police officer. So yes, there needs to be a way to vet out and remove the cops that don't necessarily need to have a badge and a gun. But to continue to give voice... But hang on. To continue to give voice and legitimacy to a group that is tacitly calling for the death of police officers is wrong. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. Those are the words that Black Lives Matter supporters use in marches and have been for months. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. When we give voice to their rhetoric, all we do is make it worse. And that is my honest opinion.
But are we giving voices? I feel that the argument is just being cherry-picked by the radicals. And I liked your point about Donald Trump, but I want to get to another point here. It says that cops are indicted in less than 1% of killings. But indictment rate for citizens is 90%. So in that basic statistic, and I understand cops are obviously law enforcement, so maybe that's a little skewed, but
maybe it's a little skewed. Of course, they're only indicted in 1% of killings because only 1% of the killings are ever deemed to be unjustified. I mean, you're cherry picking your own statistics at this point and talking about you're talking about apples and oranges. It's not anywhere near the same thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't think there's a problem when, we have all these police brutality incidents and, we look at Eric Garner, for example, who was choked out on the floor yelling, and I was terrified while watching that video recently, him saying, "I can't breathe," and no one coming to his attention.
And we talked about this on Finding Common Ground because I made the same mistake that you're referring to during an arrest that I made one time, and I listened to someone who told me they couldn't breathe, so I let up, and the next thing I know, I was being punched in the face. The issue is you can't make that call unless you were the one sitting there, and the simple fact of the matter is if he had complied with their original directives, that never would have happened.
But don't you, I guess that goes back to my argument. That's what we have the legal system for. But as my last guest stated, what do we do when the legal system simply isn't working anymore? I mean, Black Lives Matter.
We give voice to a group that is tacitly advocating the assassination of police officers. We give voice to an administration that is tacitly advocating the assassination of police officers and has done so behind the scenes now for years. He always speaks out before he knows the facts, and the simple fact of the matter is he's usually wrong, making blanket statements like the police acted stupidly before he even knew what happened. And the simple fact of the matter is we are giving voice and giving rise to rhetoric everywhere. It's what's now completely destroyed the GOP. It is now what is completely undermining the fabric of our entire nation, and it sickens me to see all of this happening, and all we keep doing is saying, well, they're only doing it because they're mad, they're pissed off, and they're hurt. I don't have an excuse to go shoot up people just because I had a bad day. And you know what kind of day I had yesterday. Bad things happen all the time. It's how we react to those bad things that matter. The simple fact of the matter is we are no longer a nation of the rule of law. Everyone says we are, but we're not. Because when we get mad, we take matters into our own hands and consequences be damned.
Right. So that's something because if you look at actual crime rates, they are drastically down from Ronald Reagan. They are drastically down since Bill Clinton. They are drastically down since George Bush. And under Obama, crime rates have fallen. And that's not my statements. That's Obama's himself. Those are the Department of Justice's statistics. Those are the FBI statistics. So when we say there's no law and order...
Yeah, and they also... Hang on, because the interesting thing about statistics is it only really matters where you get the numbers from, because they also say that the unemployment rate is at an all-time low, but that's because they've changed the way they configure those numbers. The labor participation rate is completely different than the unemployment rate.
We're jumping here, because we were just talking about how
Obama... No, hang on. No, I wasn't jumping. I was proving a point. Statistics only matter if the sources have been vetted, because the simple fact of the matter is numbers can be reworked.
These are FBI statistics, and if you want to use the FBI to accuse Hillary Clinton, let's use the FBI to back Obama.
So wait, hang on. No, I'm not using the FBI to accuse Hillary Clinton. I'm stating the fact that the FBI completely let her off the hook using their own numbers. So no, I don't think at this point the FBI should be considered a credible source.
A legitimizing source, and I'm going to use them too as a legitimizing source. I'm also going to use the Department of Justice as a legitimizing source to state that crime is down in this country. I mean, we can't deny that those are the numbers. And
your side doesn't want to deny that climate change is a myth either, but that's another story for another day.
It's not a myth, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're talking about this. We're talking about the argument that crime is down, that there is law and order. And when I hear someone like Trump stating that, I'm the law and order candidate, he sounds like Mussolini to me. He sounds scary to me. And I am cringing on the inside of this. But I want to understand, again, if crime is down and if crime is down and if we have these issues, is it really Black Lives Matter that is the issue? Or is it a totally backwards, unjust system, a racist system that has culminated this feeling? And I'm not condoning burning down a CVS or the places that give people jobs. I'm not doing that.
Actually, you kind of are. You are. That's the point I've been trying to make for the whole time I've been on your show today. If you are giving voice to these people, you are condoning their actions and their behavior.
I'm giving voice And what the media doesn't show is the peaceful protests. And if you saw Dallas before the shooting, what was it? A peaceful protest. Yes, there were a few arrests, but that happened anywhere. That will happen anywhere at any protest. I went to a climate change protest in New York City once, and there was arrests. So my question, again, is it that we have a backward system that has culminated to get us to this point? Or is it just that these people are inherently crazy, and I'm crazy with them? I mean, I don't understand. What am I missing here?
Is this multiple? Is this multiple choice? Can I choose C, both A and B?
Sure, go for it. Explain it to me.
Look, okay, my issue with the Black Lives Matter movement is, again, one of these cops that was recently shot in the Baton Rouge incident was black. Do you know what started coming out all over social media about this black cop from the same people that were cheering on the Black Lives Matter movement? It didn't matter because he was an Uncle Tom, he was a sellout, he never should have had the uniform on in the first place. That's my point. Black lives matter, but only if those black lives fit a very narrow definition of what a black person should be doing with their life. Because if you become too successful, then you're a sellout. If you put on a uniform, then you're a sellout. If you act too much like the white man, then it doesn't matter that your skin is black because you're a sellout. That's my point. We're giving voice to radicals every time we talk about these people, and every time the media puts them in the spotlight and allows them to use the rhetoric that they use. I will never forgive anyone who was standing behind a banner that said Black Lives Matter, marching through New York City, shouting the phrase "pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon," because that makes you no different. That makes you no different than the very people that you claim to be fighting against.
That is such a cherry-picked argument because there are so few people saying that. What they want from their movement is just to be respected, to be left alone by police. And clearly, your side, or the right at least, has a problem when Hillary Clinton does something wrong, but if a cop does something wrong, then there's nothing. And I'm not saying that all cops are bad. That's inherently stupid of me to say. But because it's not my argument. My argument
but it's theirs. It's theirs. Yes, it is. They are the same group that says that the police officers are basically an organized gang. So by you giving them voice, but then saying it's not your argument, you're contradicting yourself because you are giving them a spotlight they do not deserve because they inherently believe that the police officers are their own organized gang. They inherently believe that anyone who's in a uniform is an enemy regardless of their skin color, and you continue to give them voice. I, for one, refuse to do so any longer.
Well, Rick, like you always state to me that I will never understand what it's like to be behind the blue and the shield, but you will never understand what it's like to be black, and neither will I. But all I can do is be an ally and say that, it's not radical of them to want equal rights or equality in general. Not equal rights. I mean, for the most part, under law, there are equal rights, but just equality in society in general. And the problem isn't here that Black Lives Matter isn't in existence. The problem here that you're having, that I'm getting from you, is that there are nuts in the movement. And I agree with you. And that's why I was initially turned off to it, and I was on the fence about it. But when looking at what most the inner workings of the movement is after here, it doesn't seem like it's all that radical.
Except, hang on, because you're actually about out of time on your own show. But I want to make one other point, and then I'll let you have the last couple of minutes. My point is, I was where you are within the GOP about 7 years ago. I was looking at all the radical nut jobs and saying that's okay, we can work on it from within, we can give voice to the right parts of this movement, we can make sure that people understand that we're not all this crazy, and I'm telling you, that is not how this works. I am looking at where the GOP is now as compared to where the Black Lives Matter movement is now, and I understand all of you, whether you're black, white, or otherwise, that are in that movement saying, I agree with the things that the crazy people in this group are saying, so I think those people need to be heard. The problem is it's always the crazy people that wind up eventually taking over the movement. Look at the GOP. So that's what I'm saying. At this point, by doing what you're doing, all you are doing is making sure that whether it's tomorrow, next week, next month, or 5 years from now, the crazy fringe group in the BLM is going to be the ones that are running it. Because if we keep talking about it, that's exactly what's going to happen, because it is them being crazy that gives them the attention. And the more attention they get, the crazier they're going to act. And the crazier they act, the more attention they're going to get, and the crazier they're going to continue to act. It's the same thing that has just happened inside both political parties. It's human nature.
All right. Well, Rowdy Rick, tell everyone where they can find you, because I'm sure they're going to want to find you.
All right, so you can hang out with me weekday nights right here on K98 Talk. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do a solo show, America Off the Rails, at 11 Eastern. You can also hang out with me at a co-host on the Jen and Rick Show on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 10 Eastern. And, of course, you can find me occasionally when I have time to write the articles. I am a contributor on American Action News. You can also follow me on Twitter at AOTR_host.
All right, so that's Rowdy Rick. Always here to back me up and go on con on my arguments. But what I want to end the show on is this, in my last minute or two, is simple. The movement Black Lives Matter, in my eyes, is not necessarily what Rick is stating. And Rick is supposed to take the con side, and I think he actually does believe what he is stating, and that's fine. But the problem here is that, for the most part, just like our LGBTQ community, like our black community, there's a difference. And like in the first video I played, where we have Jane Elliott asking, want to be treated like black people in our society? The answer is no. When the answer is no to that, there's something wrong. Recently, I actually had the opportunity playing with these kids that I'm a counselor for at a camp where I teach public speaking and debate skills. We had some free time, and I decided to ask them, just random questions. Some were serious, some were goofy. And I asked them, if you could be another race, what would you be? And all of them picked white. Most of them were Asian or Hispanic, and most of them picked white. And the kids who were white said I'd stay the same. And I know that's a silly question, I guess, but when thinking of all these things, and when thinking of the video of Jane Elliott asking people if we would want to be black in our society, and the answer is inherently no, then you realize that there's something wrong. Now, I mean, look, with Michael Brown, he might have been charging the officer. With, Trayvon Martin, we don't know what happened. We didn't see the footage. With any of these people, there's always questions surrounding it. When I look at the video of Eric Garner, and I see a man with a family who is selling loose cigarettes, and I tell people this whenever I talk about it, I went into New York City 2 days later, and I saw a man probably on drugs, or trying to get drug money. But he was white, and he was in the Port Authority selling loose cigarettes. And I thought to myself, God, didn't you just see what happened? But what interested me, or what horrified me, is the voice, the sound of Eric Garner going down to the ground and yelling that he can't breathe. And when I think of what police are supposed to be, they're supposed to be people that you run towards and not away from. They're supposed to be protectors of our society. And I'm not saying that they're not. I love my police, and I love the police in my community, and I think that they do a great job. And I think that, blue lives do matter. And I'm full-fledged with our cops. But the system, how our cops police, needs to change. Going straight to deadly force might not be the best way to go, and New York City is just starting to see that. And they're actually, Police Commissioner Bratton is actually just apparently starting to change that as well. In Europe, the cops are much different. There are no undercover cops with cop cars, is what I'm talking about, because cops are supposed to be people that you run towards and people that you feel comfortable with. And there's a man on Facebook, and I'll leave it with this, and I'm kind of forgetting his name. I'm going to look it up for you. But he does community policing. And he makes friends when he gets all these people to, all these people in his black community to support him. I honestly forget his name, but I'll look him up and I'll get back to you on that. But for now, I'm going to leave you with a message. If I say save the rainforest, I'm not stating we should destroy all the other forests. If I say Black Lives Matter, I'm not saying the other races don't matter. I'm saying that we need to call attention to the injustice. And whether or not you agree with the actual movement of Black Lives Matter, how it's going, whether you're like Rick or you're like Sarah, the fact of the matter is there is a problem at hand. So you can decide which side of the argument you want to be on, but at the end of the day, know there is a problem. And we need to be an ally to the people who face this problem every day, the people who cannot run away from this problem, because that is who they are. So in closing, I'm Bryce Robbins. This is Opinion Nation. Figure out your opinion and come back next week where we're going to have a whole host of discussions about some other topic. And on August 13th, where we're going to be joined by Jill Stein. And we have a lot of interviews coming up because it's the summer and I got free time. So definitely come on back. Opinion Nation next week, same time, same place. I'm Bryce Robbins, your host, and I will see you next week.